Hi, everyone. I am a 40-year-old man married to my 38-year-old wife for 15 years. We have two kids, aged 12 and 9. For the most part, I always thought our marriage was stable. We also have a close family friend, a 41-year-old man who has been in our lives since our college days. He often visits, helps out with the kids, and sometimes even comes along on vacations. My children treat him like an older brother or uncle, and everything has always seemed perfectly normal. But lately, I have started to feel a strange tension. My wife seems to want something more from him than just friendship. The odd part is that he does not appear to want more. He genuinely just wants to be a friend to our family. And now I am stuck, not knowing how to handle this situation.
At first, I thought I was just imagining things. My wife started acting a little differently whenever our friend came around. She would dress up more than usual, put on extra makeup, and seem a lot more cheerful when she knew he was visiting. It wasn't anything obvious or inappropriate at the start, just small details that only a husband who knows his wife inside out would notice. She also seemed to laugh at his jokes more than mine, sometimes even repeating things he said later as if they were especially clever. When he texted about plans, she would light up in a way that felt different. I brushed it off for a while, telling myself it was harmless, but deep down, I felt the first cracks forming in the comfort of our marriage.
The thing is, our friend has never crossed any lines. He treats me with respect, he plays with the kids, and he talks to my wife in a polite, almost cautious way. If anything, I can tell that he notices her extra attention and is trying not to encourage it. He often makes an effort to include me in conversations, asks about my work, and compliments our family as a whole. When my wife leans a little too much into the interaction, he gently shifts the focus back to all of us instead of just her. It's almost like he is aware of the situation, but doesn't want to make it worse. That's what makes this so confusing. He doesn't seem interested in her in that way, and yet my wife's energy toward him feels undeniably different.
This left me in a strange place mentally. On one hand, I could clearly see my wife giving him more attention than she gave me. On the other hand, he didn't seem to want anything from her, which made me question if I was just overreacting. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking, am I being paranoid? Is this just innocent friendliness that I'm twisting into something else? But then I'd notice the way she leaned in when he spoke, or how she seemed more energized after spending time with him, and the doubt would come crashing back. It felt like being trapped between two realities, one where everything was harmless, and another where my wife's heart was slowly drifting in a direction I couldn't ignore.
It started showing up in our everyday talks. My wife began bringing him up more often, even when he wasn't around. She would say things like, he gave me really good advice about the kids' school, or, he's so thoughtful, he always notices the little things. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just appreciating a longtime friend. But after a while, I realized she was comparing me to him, subtly but consistently. If I forgot something, she'd mention how he never forgets. If I was tired and quiet, she'd say how energetic he always seems. It wasn't direct criticism, but it left me feeling like I was slowly being measured against him, and I wasn't sure I liked where that scale was heading.
The shift became more obvious during family dinners and get-togethers. Whenever he was around, my wife seemed to light up in a way that I hadn't seen in a long time. She would be more talkative, laughing louder, almost glowing. Meanwhile, I felt myself fading into the background. The kids loved having him there, which made it even harder to question anything. He blended into our family so naturally that nobody else noticed the change. To everyone else, it looked like a healthy friendship, but to me, it felt like my wife's focus had started moving away from me, and I was just sitting there, pretending not to notice.
The moment it hit me fully was subtle but unforgettable.
One evening, I overheard a conversation between my wife and our friend while I was getting something from another room. She laughed at something he said, and then said quietly, "I don't know what I'd do without you." It wasn't meant for me to hear, but it felt like a punch to the gut. At that moment, I realized that her feelings were deeper than mere friendship. My stomach twisted because I knew the friend didn't feel the same way, yet my wife's emotions were undeniable. I felt a mix of disbelief, jealousy, and fear. Fear of losing not just the trust in my marriage, but the emotional connection I thought we had.
The friend seemed to sense the tension without me saying a word. He started being more careful around my wife, keeping conversations neutral and always including me in the discussion. He never encouraged her attention, never flirted, and never crossed boundaries. I could tell he was trying to protect all of us, the family dynamic, our marriage, and even my wife's feelings, by remaining a steady, respectful presence. His behavior made it both easier and harder for me. Easier because I could see he wasn't the problem in the way I had feared. Harder because my wife's growing emotional attachment wasn't going anywhere, and it made me feel powerless.
I started questioning everything about myself and our marriage. Was I failing as a husband? Was I too predictable, too boring, too unavailable? My mind replayed every small interaction, every laugh she shared with him, every compliment she made. At the same time, I knew logically that the friend hadn't done anything wrong. He was respectful, kind, and completely aware of boundaries. The jealousy and confusion I felt were all mine, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing something important. It was a constant battle inside my head, loving my wife, caring for the friend, protecting my marriage, and trying to make sense of emotions that didn't seem fair or rational.
Eventually, I couldn't keep it inside any longer. One evening after the kids were asleep, I asked my wife directly, "Do you have feelings for him?" At first, she denied it, saying I was overthinking and imagining things. But then, after a long pause, she admitted that she felt confused and that she sometimes wished things were different. She insisted it didn't mean she wanted to leave me, but the honesty hit me like a wave. It was both a relief and a heartbreak. Relief because she admitted the truth instead of hiding it. Heartbreak because I realized that part of her emotional world had started drifting somewhere I couldn't reach.
After talking with my wife, I knew I needed to hear his side too. I asked our friend to meet me privately. I was nervous, unsure what he would say, but I needed clarity. He was completely honest. He said he had noticed the shift in my wife's behavior, but he stressed that he respected our marriage and never wanted anything beyond friendship. He said he felt uncomfortable with the emotional tension and had been careful to keep his distance. Hearing him confirm this was a mix of relief and lingering unease. Relief because he wasn't a threat, but unease because the emotional challenge wasn't gone. It was still my wife's feelings that needed attention.
After both conversations, the house felt heavy with unspoken emotions. My wife seemed embarrassed, frustrated, and a little lost, while I was battling a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I realized that my resentment wasn't toward our friend, he had done nothing wrong, but toward the situation itself. It was painful to see my wife's emotional energy drawn elsewhere, even if only partly, and I felt vulnerable in a way I hadn't experienced in years. At the same time, there was a strange sense of gratitude toward the friend for maintaining boundaries. Without him being respectful, the situation could have been much worse. I knew I had to make a choice: let resentment fester, ignore the problem, or actively work on our marriage. After long nights of reflection, I decided that avoiding the issue would only make things worse. I wanted to rebuild trust and emotional closeness with my wife. That meant open communication, setting clear boundaries with our friend, and being honest about my feelings without blaming her. It also meant accepting that her emotions were complicated and that attraction doesn't always follow reason. It wasn't easy, but I realized that taking action was the only way to protect the family we had built together.
We decided to go to couples therapy to address the emotional tension and rebuild trust. My wife agreed to set boundaries with our friend, limiting one-on-one interactions and keeping visits focused on family activities. Our friend was understanding and supportive, taking a step back without resentment. Over time, the energy in the house became calmer. My wife and I started spending more quality time together, talking openly about our needs and insecurities. It wasn't a perfect fix, and there were setbacks, but the process helped us regain a sense of balance and reminded us why we had committed to each other in the first place.
Looking back, this experience taught me a lot about boundaries, communication, and emotional honesty. I realized that attraction and feelings can be complicated, even within a stable marriage, and that the presence of a close friend can sometimes stir emotions we weren't prepared for. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is notice the subtle signs early, communicate openly with your partner, and never assume that a third party is automatically the problem. Set clear boundaries, be honest about your feelings, and remember that emotions don't have to destroy a relationship. They can be an opportunity to strengthen it if handled thoughtfully. In the end, our family is intact, our friendships are respected, and my wife and I are more aware of each other's hearts than ever before.